Hi, I'm Madisyn.
And I'm Caitlin.
Welcome to the What We Carry Together podcast.
Because no one should have to carry it alone.
Hey everyone, welcome to the 4th episode of What We Carry Together.
For 2 years, we have been chasing the chance to make embryos, and today we are finally in the waiting phase, and for the first time in a long time, I feel like I can breathe. So let's start this episode how we are planning to start all of them and talk about what we're carrying today. I'll say relief and gratitude, and then also for like what I'm carrying, I'm very nervous about Monday. Today's Saturday. I'm very nervous about Monday because that's when we're going to find out how many made it to the blastocyst stage. And so I guess, yeah, that's what I'm carrying.
Right? Yeah. I mean, and
What are you carrying?
that is very exciting. I'm carrying really just I feel the same thing. Like, I'm just really excited to hear what those numbers are and just getting closer and closer to being able to do my part,
Yeah, because I guess, we're finding out the number of embryos that are coming from me and from Mills to go to you. So it is very pertinent for both parties, not just from you caring about me as your sister, but because it directly impacts
right.
you.
And we just can't, like, we can't go forward till
Yeah.
we get this
we know
part. It's a
this.
big part. Big part.
So we are officially on the other side of the egg retrieval.
Did you ever think we would be here? Isn't it crazy?
No, I didn't. It still doesn't feel real.
Yeah, I'm
You
sure.
could pinch me. If you have listened to first 3 episodes, if you want to drop a comment and say which one was your favorite so far, we would love to know. And also, you can message us on Instagram or text us and let us know what questions you have so we can address them throughout the episodes that we are recording.
I do think just a little backstory, just like that initial part of, I feel like a lot of people that are on this maybe do already know goes into IVF. I had no clue what it all entails. They told you once the follicles were the right size, you were ready for the trigger shot, right? And so they told you you were able to take it on
2 days before my retrieval, so that would have been Saturday night.
I
went in Saturday morning for my ultrasound and blood draw, and then got a message through my portal that it's time to take the trigger shot that night. And then I was to take it at 8 p.m. on Saturday night, and then on Monday, my retrieval would be at 8 a.m.
And it has to be given at a very specific time because it tells the eggs that they're almost ready to be released, right? And yours, you had a special trigger shot, right? It was
I have no idea what normally they use, but I had Lupron.
And because I do think, because I was looking into that too, and it was more specialized. Like, I think other people can use that too, but it definitely helps lower your risk for, the response to the hormone surge.
Yeah.
And then you want to talk about the actual retrieval itself?
Yeah. So when I went to my orientation, not my first orientation, but they have another appointment that's before your retrieval. When we sat down with our doctor, and it's kind of like, how are the shots going? Do you have any final questions before? And I let them know that I have really bad PTSD when it comes to being in emergency rooms and hospital rooms, because I had my first dissection during COVID. So the wait times outside of emergency rooms, abysmal. Getting back, and like while I'm in excruciating pain, I mean, I would be screaming, crying, and there would be people that would be like, "Can you please be quiet?" As if I was screaming, crying,
Like, you were literally screaming, crying, throwing up.
in pain. Yes, I was. Yes, I was. And I had a throat basket and everything, but it wasn't, because normally, like, screaming, crying, throwing up, so excited. No, screaming, crying, throwing up, so dissected, and was just in immense pain. And there was one point where a nurse and Mom was with me. She's a nurse, and I love nurses, but I had one nurse that did magnesium. It was supposed to be magnesium drip over a span of 2 hours, and she shot it into my vein in less than 30 seconds. And Mom didn't even have time to stop her. And that, like, made my body freeze for a while, and then my stomach got really upset. And I just had
And that was very, very dangerous.
I was always wanting to make sure that I could have someone in there with me, because I was scared after that happened. I was like, you never know what could happen while in the hospital. And then
Mm-hmm.
also just the feeling of being trapped and not being able to leave. And so when I was sitting with the doctor preparing for my retrieval, I said, I don't know what it's going to be like because it's going to be a different hospital environment than what I'm used to. But I was like, my body will not be listening to my brain. And I have this out of body experience where my body literally starts to freak out and protest being where I am. And I feel like I can't breathe. Also called a panic
I mean, I
attack.
would imagine that a lot of people that were hospitalized during COVID could relate with that because
Yeah.
I cannot imagine how traumatizing and isolating that whole experience would be.
Gosh, it was just awful. And not being able to have visitors, not knowing when you're going to be able to get out. So I told the doctor that I was like, I'm going to try really hard to not be traumatized and can tell myself over and over, I'm here for an egg retrieval. This is a
Mm-hmm.
good thing. This is what I want. But I don't know that my body's going to listen. And she said, we're going to be prepared. We've
Mm-hmm.
dealt with patients with this before. So when I went to actual retrieval, I wore my Today's a Beautiful Day for a Miracle shirt. Mills had his on, and it just kind of felt like the first day of school because it
Yeah.
all felt surreal. Like I knew
Mm-hmm.
something exciting was happening, but it wasn't clocking that this is what was happening. And then we went and we were in the room, and I was not having any issues. The anesthesiologist came in and said, are you good? Because in my pocket, like I have your anxiety medication. Just let me know if you need it. I was like, I actually think I'm okay. And
Which I'm proud of you for that. That's good.
well, then one machine started going beep, beep, beep. I can't imitate it well, but it was the same beeping that the machine does at the emergency room that I had gone to for my dissections. And it's like if your heart rate gets too high or something like that, or your blood pressure's off, it will start doing that noise. So, and Mills looked at me because he knew. I said, I don't. He said, I know. I said, before I even said it, I said, I do not like that noise. And the nurse immediately muted it. And that was the only time I had an issue with anxiety. If that had kept going, I think I would have said,
Mm-hmm.
I can't do this, or I needed anxiety medication. But other than that, I was fine. And then I started to feel nervous when they were putting me on the operating table. But that's when they give you anesthesia. So I was fine.
Yeah. Well, good.
And that was a shock because I didn't think I was going to be fine. So I was brought into the room with Mills was able to go back with me for the initial part where they get your medication history. They put your IV in your arm. And that was very uncomfortable because they didn't put it in I've been getting blood so many times from right here that they put it in my forearm. And that was very painful. But my anesthesiologist came in and said, I've had a SCAD. So my anesthesiologist had a
You just got it.
spontaneous coronary artery dissection, which is like a heart attack, which is why everyone was so scared to let me do IVF because I was at risk for having a SCAD. I asked her if she knew why she had one. She said she hasn't been diagnosed with FMD or anything. They just think it's a random thing that happened to her 3 years ago. And what are the odds,
Right.
that,
Right.
and weirdly, that made me feel at peace because I said, you know, if anyone knows, she knows.
Mm-hmm.
Because she appreciates that risk because it's happened to her. And also it made me
Right.
feel good to see that she's standing and she's an anesthesiologist
Yeah.
despite going through that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I know not everyone is able to bounce back from it, but it's good to see. You always hear the horror stories. So it was
Yeah.
good to see someone that
Did.
overcame it.
Yeah. Right.
So yeah, then they put me in my hospital gown. I have my hairnet in and my socks on, did some videos with Mills, and then they brought me back and put me on the table, and I was like, I don't know if you've ever gotten anesthesia and when they've given it to you, you're like, think you overthink the part about when you actually fall asleep
But
in the
then it just
fact.
happens like so incredibly
Yes.
fast. Yeah.
And so they asked me like, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" And I started telling them, and then that's the last thing I remember. And then I woke up and I was in shock. And for the first time, Caitlin, when I saw Mills for the first time since this whole process, I really started crying
Mm.
because I was so out of it. But but I remember crying. But I just said, I can't believe it's over
Yeah.
because I've chased this for 2 years.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
quick recap of egg retrieval day. My anesthesiologist had a spontaneous coronary artery dissection. The team was great. My nurse had a pulmonary embolism before and overcame that. They were very sentimental and empathetic to my situation. Mills was able to go back with me until I went and got surgery, and he was a great dad because he did the medications with my nurse because I was like, I can't do this right now.
Mhm.
And then I didn't have to take any anxiety medicine. They put me to sleep right when I got in the operating room, and next thing I knew, it was over and I was crying.
How have you been feeling since then? Like, what symptoms have you had?
Well, if you're getting an egg retrieval, do not wear tennis shoes. Wear slip-on shoes. I didn't wear tennis shoes because I got this advice because are not going to want to bend over and you're not going to want to wear tennis shoes the next few days. It's very
Mhm.
similar to what you feel like before the retrieval. You're just very aware of your ovaries and follicles because they're still there when it's over. They've just been aggravated because you've retrieved eggs from
Like,
them.
is it, like, a very, very intense period cramping or no?
Yeah, right
Yeah.
after. Yeah, they gave me Dilaudid after, and
Oh, wow.
then IV Dilaudid after, and then they prescribed me pain medication. I also got an IUD put in, so that
That's good.
made
Like a
it
non-hormonal IUD?
yeah, it was a 2 for 1.
Yeah.
So for those of you that are just doing egg retrieval because you wanna freeze your eggs to do IVF at a later date, or for those of you that are doing egg retrieval because and can't get pregnant, know that you can have an IUD put in while you're asleep. And I don't know if anyone's had an IUD put in when you're awake. Pretty much everyone that's ever had an IUD, but it is not a pleasant experience. So getting it put in while you're asleep, I was much better. And they gave me little heating pads immediately to put on my ovaries because heat was crucial. And then they called in my medicine to the pharmacy at Mayo Clinic, and mom and dad were with us. So mom went to get the car, dad went to get medicine, or vice versa, and then Mills was with me because I was like, while I have this window of being pain free, I need to ride home because we were 15 minutes away from the hospital. And let me tell you, every pothole was
Mhm,
a
I
crime against
bet.
humanity.
Mm.
I've never been more aware of a railroad or a dip in the road than I was in that situation.
Yeah.
And I just was like, I need to get home in this break of where I'm on pain medication.
Mhm.
And then I had a heating pad on my back and a heating pad on my stomach because my lower back is still and was hurting a lot. And then in the days after, my pain went down. We did do the 2-day road trip back to Charlotte from Mayo Clinic in Minnesota. So sitting wasn't the best and it made it probably hurt a little bit more. But the second day, I definitely felt a drop in my hormones. I felt a shift in my hormones. I mean, I just started feeling really agitated and hormonal. And it was our last night. And
And you had a bad headache too, didn't you?
I told
Yeah.
mom, dad, and Mills, I was like, y'all been doing so much. And I'm so appreciative. I'm feeling very agitated for no reason. And it's my last night. It's our last night. And so I don't want to like ruin it by being in a bad mood. But I just wanted them to know. And I was like, we can keep things just chill and just know in advance that and they were like, "Oh, absolutely. That makes sense that they're very understanding." But just knowing that that's what it was instead of just feeling guilty for being,
Yeah. Well,
and
because
it
'cause I'm
also
sure
helped
you were
me
having
ignore.
a huge hormone crash after that.
Yeah, and I was. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I still kind of feel it a little bit, but not as much
Mhm.
as I did.
And
And I
then
also think it's just emotional roller coaster too.
sure. Yeah. When I thought it was great that they, are keeping you on the Lovenox injection, so they're slowly transitioning you back to the baby aspirin, which is good because your blood is still gonna be
I'm making a
thicker
face
from
if you're listening.
from all of the hormones, and then they're keeping you on the, what's the other one that starts with the L?
Letrozole
The letrozole. So that that way it's like lowering the estrogen level from all the hormones that you've had because they're obviously still floating around in your body.
was not pleased.
I was. When I heard that, when Mills told me, I was like, "Good."
We also in that doctor's appointment where I was telling them about my anxiety. They were like, "Okay, well, you're to give your aspirin time to kick back in and do its job at the level it needs to. We're going to keep you on Lovenox for a week and letrozole, and start your aspirin again after the retrieval." And then,
So you'll be done with all of that Monday, right?
yeah, and I thought last night would be my last shot of Lovenox. Like we even recorded it, and we're like, "Last shot," and then we're like, "Why did we think that?" Because it's Monday. But I would like to say, I know there are so many people listening to this that have done IVF that are rolling their eyes because they have to do Lovenox for 20 weeks or 25 weeks. And man, power to you. Go ahead and roll your eyes because you deserve to. because that is trooper status. Again, like with my situation, it's not infertility. It's medical infertility that I can't carry, but I don't have infertility. So my IVF cycle, while modified, was more so modified because of my arterial illness and not because of infertility. Whereas like other
Mhm.
people, they'll go through the cycle once, it won't work, they'll modify, they have to do shots morning and night, they have to do all these different protocols. But mine was really just not pleasant, still sucked.
I mean, thank goodness your follicles and everything responded relatively quickly, and they probably wanted to go ahead and say, since they were, let's go ahead and do it and
Keep me
cut
off the
down on the
medicine.
yeah, they
Yeah.
didn't want you
I
on
could have
medication.
stayed on it longer, but
And it could have probably been potentially more successful, maybe.
sister, we didn't even do the numbers.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's go over that because that's probably what anyone cares about.
Yeah, drum roll. We got numbers. And then I'm also going to talk about after this, like the ride home, the weight lifted, and a few more things. And I'm sure you have questions. But I guess it's a good time to talk about the numbers because we've gone through the process leading up to it and the actual retrieval day. So, like, what happens to the eggs after they're retrieved and how many were retrieved? I'm sitting in the room post retrieval with the heating pad on, still on pain medication, a little out of it. Mills is right there. And she comes in. I don't know who came in, but someone came in and I don't remember who it was. I just remember someone coming in and saying, "Now, remember, we retrieved every single egg from every follicle we could, regardless of how small it was. So just remember that keep that in mind, but we got 16." And I was immediately pleased with 16. I just feel like that's a really good starting point. And it
Mhm.
doesn't mean we're going to end up with 16 embryos. We're already fewer than that. But just so people know, every stage you go through, which I think we've touched on this, your numbers are going to drop until you end up with the actual amount of embryos that you have that are appropriate or healthy enough for transfer. So I had 16 eggs retrieved, and then 14 matured, and then 11 fertilized and were 2PN, which is 2 pro-nuclei status. And Caitlin, I think you've researched this a little bit more than me if you want to talk about that. And then the next two stages will be blastocyst and PGT, pre-implantation genetic testing. But if you want to kind of tell them about, because I've been nervous to research this.
So once the eggs are retrieved, then from there, they're taken straight to the embryology lab where they're fertilized with the sperm. And so the lab checks the embryos every day as they continue to grow and divide. And then roughly days 5 to 7, that's when the healthiest embryos may reach what's called the blastocyst stage. And those are the embryos that have the best chance of becoming a pregnancy. And this is another time when the numbers often shrink. So we don't know the blastocyst number yet, right? That's what you find out Monday, correct?
Well,
Yeah.
they'll know it tomorrow, but Mills and I are just assuming that they're not going to reach
Tell you
out
on
on
a Sunday.
Sunday.
Yeah.
So we're thinking we'll find out Monday. It's going to be so hard because I'm going to get a notification from Mayo Clinic and Mills is going to be at work. I'm going to be at work and I'm not supposed to look until we're together.
Yeah. But then,
But
so
I need to wait until I'm with
I
Mills so
know.
that
I
we
mean,
can look and find out the
that would be very
blastocyst
hard.
together.
That would be very hard.
Maybe I'll FaceTime him and be like,
That's what I would do because I would not be able to wait.
You're like, I don't want you to wait because I
I
need you
don't
to
want you to
text me
wait.
and let
I
me know
want to
immediately.
know. Yeah. Oftentimes, and in this situation, they are going to do the genetic testing, the PGTA. And that's just when a few cells are removed from the part of the embryo that will eventually become the placenta. And then they'll freeze the embryo from there. And then they'll send those cells to the genetic lab. And then over, I think it was 3 weeks or so, they check to make sure that each embryo that has successfully gone to this stage has the correct number of chromosomes. And then again, at this stage, the numbers are going to get smaller. So the importance of this is because we're wanting to make sure that that transfer is as successful as possible. And so that's why genetic testing can be so valuable. It helps identify which embryos have the highest chance of leading to a healthy baby.
And
And
it doesn't mean that it's going to be a perfectly healthy baby. It
right.
doesn't, it just means which one is going to have the best chance of transfer.
And
So,
survival through,
and least
yeah.
likely to miscarry. So
Right.
it's not saying that your baby is going to be perfectly healthy. It's more like which embryo is going to be most likely to lead to a healthy pregnancy. And a lot of people have been asking me, do you get to pick if it's a boy or a girl? And in our case with Mayo Clinic and with surrogacy, number one, PGT is a lot of times optional. Mayo Clinic for surrogacy requires it because you're involving another party. And so they want the best chance of success. And so we had to do it, but we would have done it. We were already going to do it. And then for choosing the sex, no, they are going to use the healthiest embryo out of the embryos that they have. So no, we will not be choosing the sex. And also, I got this advice from a friend because I said, I don't want to name, like, okay, this comes into play because Mills is the third for his name. So if we have a boy, we're going to name him the fourth. And so if the embryo is a boy, I don't want people to call him that name because if something happens and the transfer isn't successful or there's a miscarriage, I'm not going to, if we were calling the baby by the name, I wouldn't use that
Yeah.
name again.
Yeah.
So I was talking to one of my friends about this and she named her embryos based off shape.
That's cute.
So they have one called Puff. And that Puff ended up being a successful transfer and is a baby girl now. And then,
I love that.
I know. I thought that was so cute. And I can't remember the other ones that she said, but they were all adorable. But for that friend, she had 10 fertilized embryos. So we have 11. She had 10. She ended up with 3 embryos at this stage, or maybe after PGT. I had a friend that had 9 retrieved and ended up with 3 embryos. And like, again, there's no rhyme or reason to any of this. So I don't know. I think I'm just so grateful to know that I didn't dissect because most people that go through IVF, their sole focus is on the numbers because they struggle with fertility. And so the numbers aren't always as cut and dry. For me, I was terrified of dissecting.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like my main focus. And because I didn't dissect, I feel like I still haven't cut, like, holy cow, I didn't dissect. So for the weirdest thing, I haven't really thought too much about the numbers since. And also because 16, I feel like it sounds like a good retrieval number. So for me, I've just been focused on like healing, and which I'm really bad at this normally. Normally I'd be obsessing over the numbers, but right now I've just been focusing on like taking my Lovenox, taking it easy, and resting up from that 2-day car ride. And yeah, I just have been trying not to obsess over the numbers.
Yeah. I mean, and I do think the numbers that you got, I mean, they seem very hopeful. So I think that's really good. And I'm glad that you're able to be like mindful during this time and not just spiraling.
I was just going to say, I did ask them in that meeting, like, I don't want to get ahead, but my sister, what's next? Because she offered to be our surrogate. And the doctor was like, we don't want to put you and your sister through unnecessary screening or whatever. So we're going to wait till we have like a good embryo. And then we can start having those conversations. And so, but she sounded very positive about it. But I totally get that they didn't want to move forward until they knew for sure.
And that will be after the genetic testing.
Mm-hmm. And then you will do the same screening that I did and send over your medical records. And then that's all I know. I know we do couples therapy and we do therapy, but like, I don't know how long that process is. I don't know really anything beyond knowing that you're going to be required to do all of that testing.
Okay. And then after that, then I guess I'll start preparing my body for.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to figure out, this process is going to continue to be really difficult and it's going to kind of shift to you for timing. I mean, if you look back the past 2 years, this was our 4th or 5th trip to Mayo Clinic since January. And so in Rochester, Mills and I have been staying. We have our favorite restaurants in Rochester. We have our favorite hotels. We have an ice cream place that we like. Like, we were giving mom and dad the tour of Rochester because we have spent so much time there and then for the past 2 years, Mills and I have been going to different hospitals. We've had to take off work. We've had flights. We've had car rides. We've had hotels. We've had layovers. We have got tickets to Rochester, New York instead of Rochester, Minnesota. And we're stranded at Boston at one point. And we have been all over the place. And so it's been a long 2 years of hearing no, 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 no. And then, yes, with a good deal of risk. And then overcoming all of that. And now we're here, and I just feel so surreal that I was like, once I have embryos, I'll believe it. I have 11 fertilized and I still don't believe it. So now interesting because we're going to be shifting to add
Oh, but
another.
you've done your whole part. Like,
Yeah,
you've
yeah.
done, and like,
So I feel like I've
that's,
lost 5,000 pounds for that
I
part.
cannot even imagine.
I mean, 5,000 pounds. And I think that's why I haven't been so number obsessed, because
Mhm.
normally I would be. I think I'm just so grateful that I'm through this part,
Healthy.
because
Yeah.
I thought I could have a heart attack doing these
Mhm.
shots. And like you said, I think that's why they wanted to one and done, like get in, get out,
Like,
because
as
they
soon
wanted
as
me
they
on.
were responding,
They wanted me on them for the
Yeah.
shortest amount of time as possible.
Mhm.
And so I just feel like I've lost 1,000 pounds. I cannot put into words how awful the past 2 years have been and what this journey has been, that I forgot how it feels to feel like I do today. I have not felt like I do today in the longest time, probably since Mills and I were trying to get pregnant. That's the last time I felt like this. It was when I thought my first dissection was a fluke, when I had been healthy for a while, and when Mills and I were trying to start our family. And it was just like a time of hope, and like just getting to be naive and getting to enjoy everyday things and not be thinking, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? How
Mhm.
are we going to do this? And then right now, I feel like we're going to do this. And so I just feel the most at peace I've been in a long time, which is
That's
beautiful.
great. Yeah,
Praise
and I mean,
God.
like, every day is closer to you having a baby than you ever have been. I mean,
Yeah.
every day that embryo is growing and maturing, and just every step along the way, and it's so exciting.
Yeah.
So
And I think
exciting.
right now, Mills and I are still in a bubble. We got home a couple days ago, and we haven't, Mills went to work on Friday. I took the week off, so I didn't work Friday, but I am like kind of nervous to put myself in social situations right now, because Mills and I haven't been out and about yet. And like, I'm kind of protecting my peace. I had therapy right when I got back, and we just have, Mills and I have been in our bubble, and my therapist was like, you don't have to respond to all of your text messages right away. That's really great that people are texting you, but take time to like ease back into things, because this was a huge stress that's been on you.
Mhm.
And so,
I mean, I think that's where this is different too. Like, it's, because I mean, people they may say, well, okay, but you're recording a podcast. But I feel like that's different, because it feels just more like we are sitting down and talking, and
and
having a
it's easier to
conversation.
share this once.
Yeah, yeah.
And for
Even
some
though it is
reason,
good news, but it is like, it's a lot.
it stresses me out to tell people who aren't familiar with IVF how many eggs were retrieved and where we're at this stage, because it sounds like such a big number. Updating people is scary, because I just, like, individually, because I don't know what's going to happen with the numbers, and I just get very nervous.
Mhm.
It's been a crazy 2 weeks.
Yeah.
3.
And then we'll try to update this weekly. There might not always be a lot of information to share, because I don't know how much, and I don't really know what's going to transpire week to week.
One thing, though, that I did want to say was Mills had to give me my Lovenox shot in the gas station parking lot.
Got to do what you got to do.
You'll be having to do shots in weird places, I'm sure. So,
Deck will be like, what's that? And then he's also obsessed with Band-Aids and boo-boos.
yes,
So,
Mommy has a boo-boo.
yeah.
So, do you want to talk about what we are grateful for?
I mean, I think probably it's going to be the same thing, because I'm going to say that I'm very grateful that you are through this and that you're healthy and happy. And that is a huge, huge blessing and relief.
I agree. I'm very thankful for the prayers. I'm thankful for Mayo Clinic saying yes. And I'm grateful I didn't have a dissection.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd love to hear from our listeners about what you're carrying this week. Thank you for listening again.
Then we'll be back in next week with the numbers after for the blastocyst stage that will go on to the genetic testing.
Yeah,
So
so
that's really exciting.
we are keeping our fingers crossed, saying some prayers for some good numbers, and also praying thanks.
Yep, absolutely. That's just as important. Well, we'll talk to you guys next week.